Hello, Internet, and how everyone is doing. This is our day 3 of AWS reInvent live coverage, and I'm reporting you from virtually. And I am in a very new day compared to the people we are in the reInvent as well. So my name is ℂ𝕝𝕚𝕦, your co-host for this show of Cloud Native FM, and alongside me for the last 2 days, and now it's a day number 3 for Richard joining us from Cloud Therapist YouTube channel. How are you, Richard?
Hey guys, I'm good. Yeah, good to see you again, Saim. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. You can ask me Happy Friday. You can
Yeah,
absolutely ask me because I'm actually in Friday.
yes. So it's 8 p.m. in London GMT time. It's 12 p.m. in PST in Vegas. And Saim, what
Oh,
time is it again for you?
oh my God, it's 1 a.m. and I am in Friday
I
as
always
usual.
love teasing you about that one.
Absolutely. But I feel like we have fight a lot with these time zones for the
Mm,
last 3 days and also during the
yeah,
KubeCon as well.
it
Might
was
be
the
this is our
same.
last day of the live stream in 2024. It's going to be a very smooth experience. We never thought we able to cover two big conferences and we able to pull together two field reporter for us. Unfortunately, today our field reporter is not feeling healthy, so he wouldn't able to join us. But do appreciate. Let's do a clap for our Amin Alamdar
I mean,
for
hope you
actually
get
doing
well soon. Hope you get well soon.
absolutely.
Get some rest.
Absolutely. Get some Rasa is actually giving us a very good vibes from AWS reInvent as well. So, Richard, can you briefly tell us? Because there's so much we need to unpack here in a minute. What's
Okay.
happened today? Like, oh my God, there
Yeah.
is so many links to click on for the announcements.
Yes, there was quite a few. I mean the keynotes. The main one was Werner Vogels, who's the CTO
Mhm.
for AWS. It wasn't really sort of a more announcements and kind of new solutions and products or whatever. It was more kind of really a recap of some of the announcements, how those are actually being used, and kind of breaking it down a little bit more. He also kind of reminisced a little bit. He kind of went back in time about some of the existing platforms where they started, like S3, and where kind of S3 started and what they're kind of doing with it now, and stuff like that. So it was almost kind of a little bit of that. He talked a little bit about cell-based architecture, which seems to be kind of taking off a little bit at the moment in terms of it's becoming of interest and useful in sort of cloud-based architecture designs. So it was all about reducing impact of issues, grouping you know similar services into a cell, all the same or similar services basically into a cell. As I said, he went back into memory lane about S3, so he was reminiscing about S3's kind of good old days. And yeah, even they even had one of the S3 engineers out as well. So he actually came out
Oh,
and he came on stage and did a talk. And his talk was about tractors.
oh
That's
my
how he
God.
started his presentation. I think he's Canadian, so he was talking about his old when he was young, and kind of he lived on a farm or whatever. And so he did a tractors analogy or whatever, which I'm not sure that really worked very well. But anyway, it kind of went on a little bit about farms and tractors. Yeah, so that was all kind of around S3 really. And then a couple of the customers that they rolled out, the Too Good to Go customer, and he was talking about 40% of the world food is actually wasted. So they're kind of all about trying to save that wasted, food, or the excess food that people and companies and maybe restaurants or whatever don't actually need. So they actually redistribute that. Um,
Mhm.
and he was claiming that 40% of the food wasted uh, is contributes 10% of the greenhouse emissions
Oh,
globally, which is quite an interesting both statistic and connection as well. So he was saying that contribution, that 10%, is actually 4 times more than the aviation industry, contributes to greenhouse emissions. I did notice, though, he didn't mention the IT and hyperscale data center industry,
Oh,
and how much they produce, and how much into the air as well, how much their contribution is to the to greenhouses. But yeah, anyway, so that was it was kind of focusing more around the food waste and so on. So that was that. And then in the other presentations, I also picked up, all the keynotes, I should say, there was a lot about Aurora distributed SQL, so DSQL, which was announced on Tuesday. But again, like I said,
yes.
a lot of the keynotes were kind of recapping and going into detail, drilling into the detail of all of these things. So I picked up a little bit more around Aurora DSQL. So things like no single point of failure, no downtime when you're sort of upgrading and updating or creating more nodes. And also the way that it actually scales is quite clever as well. So when you do more queries, the query processor scales specifically to cater for the extra traffic or requests. When you need to do more reads from the database, the storage partition scales to basically the replicas essentially scale so they can actually cope with the demand. And when you need more writes, the journaling aspect of it also scales as well.
Awesome.
Music,
Absolutely.
is that coming from you or from me?
I think it's
Oh, it
you.
might be from
Okay.
me. Okay, hang on.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's the live stream. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I've
No,
got the
no
live
worries.
stream.
No worries. It's
uh,
live debugging.
it's a live stream. Yeah, so I've got the AWS live stream in the background. So yeah, so that was kind of all around Aurora DSQL. There was also Aurora integration with Postgres SQL as well, so support around that. EKS auto mode came up in a couple of posts. Somebody actually did a nice diagram, so I will try and include that in the comments as well, so folks can actually have a look at that. In fact, let me drop that in now. So they were kind of talking a little bit more about what does that actually, kind of practically, EKS auto mode practically looks like. So I thought
Yes.
that was an interesting post. So I picked up on that a little bit earlier. And then the recent one, which was the subsequent presentations, was around Oracle Exadata, and Oracle essentially now being, kind of running in the AWS environment. So you can actually run your Oracle databases and Exadata platforms in AWS. So they're calling it Oracle Database at AWS. So that's all focusing around minimizing latency and maximizing performance. So that was one of the other keynotes, which was by Jeff Carter, who's a VP at AWS. And he said, and I quote this because I thought it was quite interesting. He said, we are very excited about this, i.e. moving Oracle into AWS. And why shouldn't you be excited? Of course you'll be excited by having Oracle in AWS. It means you're getting closer to that data yourselves. So yes, that was interesting. And then the other keynotes, which I think are still happening at the moment, so obviously we can't
Yes.
bring the content at the moment. There's one about accelerating healthcare with Gen AI, which I think should be happening now. Reimagining the developer experience at the AWS. I definitely want to go back to that and see what they talk about that and what is the kind of, if they're going to announce anything new or talk about what they've done in that, what changes they've done. And then the power of cloud network innovation. Now, if I'm hoping this is kind of in the space that I want it to be, it's, I'm hoping it's going to be around network management and stuff like that in the cloud. And it's interesting how observability platforms and also networking, platform solutions just from third parties, not AWS, but just from third parties, how they provide information around your cloud network in terms of the traffic and obviously security and configuration and routing and stuff like that as well. But in terms of the traffic, it's quite interesting that they can only essentially go within the bubble that AWS has provided you with. So they can't really, their systems cannot necessarily traverse outside of that bubble to actually sniff other areas of the AWS environment, because those are closed off by AWS. So you can't really get your hands on that sort of information. You can essentially really do the main stuff within your bubble, within your sort of AWS environment that you've created. So I know that there are some vendors are actually looking to try and get go beyond that bubble, go beyond the local sort of cloud environment that you have in AWS. So we'll see how that goes. There might be some announcements from third parties that will be able to give you essentially an end-to-end tracing
Yes.
of your network traffic in AWS and indeed other public clouds as well. But at the moment, I think all of these are kind of quite confined in terms of what they can offer you. So that's why I'm interested in this Power of Cloud Network Innovation keynote that's coming up. I think later on this afternoon.
Just one thing that I want to actually.
Sorry, Saeem, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
No, I can't hear you now.
There's
Okay, you're back.
there's a
You're
one
back.
news
Yeah.
I'm reading and want your head want you to reflect on. There's a one company is actually sound stem separation startup wins 100,000 AWS unicorn tank pitch competition.
Okay.
And they're basically an audio shake which uses AI to recognize different component in a piece of audio and then isolate the sound system so they can be used for new purposes, and was one of the 8 startup pitching their cutting-edge generative AI ideas to a panel of investor, AI pioneer, and industry leader. So the competition runner-up voted by the reinvent audience was Kodu, a startup that building a coding platform for debugging, which walk away with $25,000.
Okay.
That's quite interesting. I doesn't know like these are the things happen in the AWS reInvent, while
Yeah.
me and Richard will build out our own startup and try to compete in the next year.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Maybe we can win the next one for next year. Same.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think the only reason I actually talk about this thing because yesterday we were talking about one of the things, building a coding platform for debugging, and there's a one of the solution called Kodu. How do I call it? KODO So how do I
Mhm.
pronounce it? So they actually, this is their website. This is quite interesting. This is quite
Okay.
interesting to see what is actually happening in this application. So basically, what I'm seeing is that they can help you diagnose issues during your codings and also in the production system as well.
Right.
Oh, that's a good place to watch out. So, Richard, let's keep an eye out on this thing, and we need to add someone from their team to talk with us on our podcast and tell
I
us
think
what they're
so.
building.
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yes.
so. Definitely. Well, I'll certainly check them out because I think they're okay. Kodu. Okay, right. I have to figure out how to pronounce their name first before anything
Yes,
else.
absolutely. But now this will be our in radar, and we definitely want to talk with these folks, like what they're actually building. But sorry
Yeah.
for the interruption. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was saying one other customer uh, sort of story that they rolled out was I think United Airlines, and they were talking. I mean, they went into a lot of sort of detail. It was actually quite an extensive presentation, but they were talking about one of the points I picked up on it was app modernization, and they said that they have so far modernized 400 plus apps, which they have developed internally, and those are all now running in AWS, and they're running in a cloud native sort of design. So that was interesting. There's lots. They talked about lots of other things about kind of how they're bringing in things like Gen AI to deal with certain aspects of their business, those aspects that interact with customers when there are flight delays and issues with airplanes and things like that, baggage handling, lots of other things as well. So yes, United was one of the other customers they wheeled out for our presentation, and that was quite impressive. The stuff that they've done to modernize themselves. That was quite cool.
Absolutely. And I think like if I can see some of their announcement and actually share this on the comment as well,
Mm,
is I think once again if we can try to see what is the full revolution, full where is that? It's once again the AI. If we do the conclusion of what it is, the reinvent is the focus is quite heavily on the AI, and
mm,
also I see there's companies leaders from the Viz. They spoke about this thing called online plagiarism checker and in leveraging speed while priority security. So also I think there's a notion of cyber security is also in the AWS community partners radar as well, how they actually tackle this security. So I
right.
think there's a lot of startup is actually building around AWS for just actually making sure the secure pipelines are in production and there is a supply chains risk attacks. So I've seen
Yeah.
there's a lot of startup is actually building around these things as well. And also I think yesterday I noticed from the Swami keynote, he's talking
That's fine.
about
Yeah.
Yes, Luma AI, and I think some of their co-founder spoke about how they actually using it for the text to AI and AI to text, video to text, and
Hmm.
and text to audio generation. And this tells us how what are some of the capability they use. And also, I think they introduce Luma AI Ray 2 model. That's a
Hmm.
it's basically a real-time video generation for Amazon Bedrock. And
Right.
also I think Amazon Bedrock is now have a marketplace with more
Yeah.
than I think 100 different model you can
LLM.
use. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean, they're pretty much all in there. And now, obviously, they include the new one from Amazon themselves, the Amazon Nova, which we mentioned
yes,
yesterday
absolutely.
as well. So a lot of stuff happening specifically around Bedrock, and I think that's really cool because that's really kind of the playground as they call it, right? For testing out and doing all these things. And then Q is kind of the more the conventional chat GPT type of model, where you can use that within your business environment and things
Mm.
like that, and build applications around it and so on. Whereas Bedrock's kind of a little bit more kind of experimental. You can play with that. Although I mean, like so some of the demonstrations I've seen on it have been absolutely fantastic as well. So there's a lot of goodness in that as well.
Absolutely. I think yesterday we spoke about Amazon Bedrock rocks, and that's eventually happening in
Mm.
for the last 3 days. Like if you look at the news, they actually introduced Amazon Bedrock for multi-agent orchestration, so that
Yes.
multiple team can collaborate on these AI model. And then they also introduce caching and routing as well. So there's a prompt queue caching with 90% on cost reduction, and they're saying offering cost saving up to 30 to 90% respectively for running AI application and intelligent prompt routing optimizes prompt handling by directing queries to appropriately sized model, while prompt caching reducing token regeneration cost by storing common queries for reuse and significantly lowering expenses and latency for enterprises.
Right.
So once again, we see this Bedrock is going to be a really popular thing inside AWS, and they're developing so many solutions for that as well. And I was wondering yesterday, I heard Hyperpod, Amazon Hyperpod. I don't know what it is, but it actually a task governance and keeps GPU running. And once again, I think it's cutting costs down as well. I think, and it is a feature of SageMaker, optimizes GPU usage and reduces idle time with cutting AI infrastructure costs by up to 40%, even during off-peak hour, addressing a critical efficiency challenges for enterprising scaling AI initiative. So I believe Amazon understand this, that the cloud cost is the only barrier for enterpriser is not actually coming into the cloud and leveraging the AI model. So they actually building up significantly cost reduction method for people to use AI. So that is quite natural because in cloud native and Kubernetes based infrastructure, we are already very scary with how much cost we need to spend on just to run few apps on the cloud. And
Yeah.
if you add AI on top of it, your CEO of the company will actually kill you if you do that. So that's why we see, and I think for the day, I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and even today, I see there's a
Yeah.
huge focus on cutting the cost down. And
Right.
I quite see it. I think it's not just about reinvent, but also I see in the Ignite as well, and also Google I/O that everybody's speaking about reducing the cost. So I think if you don't do that, I don't think the customers will actually kind of happy with you.
Right. I just posted. I spotted this earlier today. Somebody was offering. They're like 10 hands-on projects in AWS, which was quite interesting. I think they're all free ones you can check out. So if you kind of want to get your hands dirty a little bit with AWS and kind of play around, this 10 projects for you to have a go at um, and experiment a little bit in the AWS space.
Yes, absolutely. I think like I try to see like if there are any certification they roll out for the AI, particularly for the AI. Is there any certification they roll out?
I don't know if that. I mean, we did see those guys, sitting in to do certifications, right?
Oh my
So
God.
that was day one. So that was interesting, but I don't know if there's like anything specific. I mean, I'm sure they do. They would do now for things like Bedrock, I presume, and Q and so on. So you would
Yes.
have that. But as to kind of what does that do? I don't know. I guess you become an expert on Bedrock, I suppose. Uh,
I think they have one called AWS Certified AI Practitioner.
yes,
So
yeah.
they
So
have
there's like
one,
I think there's a generic one that you
yes.
can do. Yeah.
But I don't but and I think it's going to be around somewhere in February 25. They actually you can schedule the exam around it. So I believe in near future we can expect to see there's more certification around AI,
Mm.
definitely in the umbrella.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I guess you will, but I mean, I don't know to what end, because unless you want to become um, a sort of a data scientist or an ML ops
mm,
person or something. I guess those would be useful because those are quite generic. But other, I don't know, and again, learning things like prompt engineering and so on would be good. But I don't know what else you'd use that for. I really don't.
hmm. Yes, and I noticed you added some links on the LinkedIn post. So can you speak about what it is? What the is it around all the
Yeah,
updates to LinkedIn?
somebody. Yeah, this was somebody I just spotted who was kind of making a little bit of commentary around some of the announcements so far. I think it's a day old or so. So he was kind of picking up a lot more on uh, the foundation models. So that's the Nova, 6 new Nova models. He said, and he was talking about the the Trainium 2 chips from AWS were also announced. Project Rainier, which is a supercomputer that was announced, and also Anthropic and investment in Anthropic as well, the $8 billion investment in Anthropic. So it was just somebody's opinion from LinkedIn, and I thought it was quite interesting that he kind of put all those AI related,
Oh,
announcements together.
good. So sorry to interrupt you, Richard, but we have a guest who's joining us now.
Hey,
So, oh, great. Amra, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine.
yes,
Glad your internet and everything working perfectly fine because we've been struggling for the last 2 days. But glad to hear from you.
yeah,
So, Amra, you're actually now live and you're actually live from two YouTube channels.
Okay.
So, that's about me in Cloud Native FM. And also, I have my co host from the Cloud Therapist YouTube channel, Richard Simon. He's actually from UK. So, Richard, can you say hi to our guest?
hey, Emma, how you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing well. It's quite a busy day at Vegas today. So I was in the keynote by Werner, and then looking around and just like attending some sessions. Yeah, quite excited about the all the things coming in this event.
Fantastic. We've been trying to have guesses throughout the week as to, and we've been asking, I think, well, when we can, we've been asking all of our guests, how many, what is your estimate in terms of the number of people that have turned up for reInvent?
So like I knew that like I this is my sixth event, and I've been to here like since 2018, and
Okay.
I think the most crowded so far was 2019, and then after the event, the AWS announced it was 65K people.
Okay.
And what I am seeing in the halls of Venetian and the other hotels is like as crowded as that time. So I'm expecting around again 65, maybe 70K people, like somewhere around like this. So it's quite crowded here, and I'm it's very good to see the energy and the like how vibrant the community are in the events, and we will see how playful it will be this evening at replay.
Yeah.
The Weezer and the Z is coming, so like it's quite. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So,
Uh,
Richard, I think I just need some few minutes to introduce our guest to our audience as well
yes.
because
So let's
he's
do that.
been doing very wonderful work in the community. So, Amra, I'm just reading some of the and do actually update us on your profile as well. So,
Mhm,
Amra is the AWS serverless hero,
Mhm,
obsessed with developer experience and observability. And
mhm,
I will definitely asking some question around because he is a co-founder and the head of product at Amped. I hope
mhm.
I'm pronouncing it correctly,
Yeah, correct.
and where he can live up to his obsession. He is a community organizer who organized AWS Community Day Turkey, Serverless Day Istanbul, and Serverless Days virtually. And that is quite a wonderful a profile, so we can ask question from the various angle as well. But from the first thing first, if I misses anything, please do add and tell a little bit about this AWS recognition called serverless hero, what that means, how can people actually earn these recognitions.
Yeah, so AWS, yeah, being an AWS hero is like quite a privileged, role that you can play, and it's like an quite a recognition given by AWS to the people who are active in their communities, who are helping communities with the with by organizing events, by their open source activities, by just like being active with the blog posts and the YouTube videos like you were doing here. So I'm into AWS technologies since like 2017, and I was one of the serverless evangelists since its early days. So back then I was working in a serverless observability company called Tundra. I was again the product manager for it. So I'm actually a developer who's still like doing some side projects, but the life took me to a product management path where I'm just like being annoying to our developers inside, and there's like being helpful to the developers using my products. So I was like during that time I was very active in the serverless community. I was giving talks about serverless and the serverless observability in particular. And after like a three, like, and I was not expecting to get a recognition or whatsoever. So and then pandemic hit everyone, and then like at that time we started the serverless days virtual, because like it was like the first serverless days virtual was, I think it was 20 something in March 2020. So it was like the very action of like whenever we got into lockdowns, we created this service as virtual. I think after that, I think the AWS my efforts for community didn't go unnoticed, and I'm a AWS serverless hero since that time, since 2020. And after that, I worked at serverless.com, so the creators of serverless framework. And then there, with my colleagues, we started ℂ𝕝𝕒𝕚, and then we spun this off as a separate company. So ℂ𝕝𝕚𝕚, reached to some place, and then we were like struggling with the fundraising and everything. Actually, we kind of didn't actually completely leave ℂ𝕝𝕚, but we kind of paused our efforts at ℂ𝕝𝕚. We are still maintaining our customers. We are still helping our customers, but I'm now working at a new company for like 5 months. I just went back to observability space with telemetry pipelines this time. So I'm actually, you can see me if you are in Vegas. You can see me at ℂ𝕝𝕚 booth. So I'm working at ℂ𝕝𝕚 as again a product manager for them. This is kind of quite a story, and we continue organizing AWS Community Day Istanbul for 5 years now. It will be, let me tell you, like you will be my guest if you come to be on April 19th in Istanbul again. This is quite the smallest summary that I can tell about myself. So
No, it's been a great profile. I know, Richard, I have some question to that front as well, but I do need to hear some things around Get Amped, and then actually I definitely want to hear about what your new startup is doing. I think it's called ℂ𝕝𝕚 or something like
yeah,
that.
it's ℂ𝕝𝕚.
But I definitely, absolutely. But I want, because in your profile currently there's a listed as ℚ𝕝𝕚. I see there in their website there are many cool people in there in the website who are building something. And then I look at it, and then I ask, oh, is this my reserved question for Amra? Is so many wonderful people are in there. So what actually happening in that company when you actually spend time there for the last few years?
Yeah, so it was like the last 2 years, I can tell. So ℚ𝕝𝕚 is like it started with this question about hey, we are building applications on cloud using serverless applications, but there is still quite a steep learning curve about it. So you need to, especially the information around knowledge about IAM permissions and how to cobble your services together, how to do choreography, how to orchestrate your services. Like, let's say, like when do you need SQS over Event Bridge, when do you need let's say Dynamo over some other database solution. So it is still like not very easy, very complicated for an average serverless developer. And what we are aiming to solve with ℚ𝕝𝕚 is we are providing new primitives for the application developers. Like those primitives are API, DB, the events hub, and so like we are just like abstracting away cloud complexities and like providing an SDK for the customers, and also fully managing these for them. So we are just actually managing AWS accounts on behalf of our customers, but they don't need to know what's happening in the background, and they are totally isolated. So when they want to look at the AWS account in the background, we are just providing them accessibility, and then if they want, we are just like letting them run ℚ𝕝𝕚 on their account. it's actually like quite an easy way to build backend and also front-end applications. But like we are like you are saying that just db.set, and it's creating a new record at DynamoDB. You don't need to know how to create a DynamoDB table, how to do single table design. So we are all doing it for the customers. So yeah, and you can integrate it with the front-end frameworks and so on.
Yes, absolutely. And I think credit to all the people who built the website as well, because when I look at it, there's some very cool demos in there that instantly tell me what you're actually doing in the company, that front as well. Because I think there's a very unique set of people actually working together. And I think it's a good initiative as well. I have some question in there, but I have my wonderful guest co-host with me, and Richard, I definitely have some question on that front as well. So Richard, over to you if you have some questions for our guest.
Yeah, I mean, Emrah, I think you said you kind of been to quite a few of these AWS reInvent conferences. I was curious to kind of understand a little bit more about how they kind of over the years, how they've really sort of looked at, things like open source. So Sam and I covered KubeCon a few weeks ago, as well as a live stream, and we talked to lots of people, and there's obviously a lot of sort of turmoil really happening. There are lots of changes and challenges, especially around licensing and things like that recently. So we've had a lot of announcements around that, and some of the vendors changing the way that they do licensing. So just curious to kind of maybe get your experience from an AWS perspective as to how AWS looks at those things, and maybe what's kind of their view on it. Not sort of necessarily an official statement or anything, but just kind of what's kind of been their sort of view of things like that.
Yeah, and also I'm nowhere to make like an official statement on behalf of AWS, but I can see what I'm seeing from my point of view. So AWS is already like they are supporting initiatives like open source initiatives like in every shape or form they can do. Like as you know, like this was ongoing. How can I say, wars between OpenSearch and then the Elastic and everything, and then it's just like finalized. So some new thing that got me really excited this year was about Volky. If you heard about Volky before, so it's like an in-memory database, and AWS is supporting it like 100%. And like they were actually an Volky party last night. I just joined, and it was like quite like the milestones that they reached already is really important. So I recommend everyone checking it. It's Volky.io, I assume. So you can just let me just test if I think it's Volky.io. Yeah, it's Volky.io. So sending from chat so that we can share with the attendance. And yeah, so this is like the newest thing that AWS is supporting in terms of open source. I recommend everyone checking it. And there is like a dedicated team looking at the open source projects and just supporting the community. And I'm not, just being honest, I'm not very into open source development myself. But like I'm kind of very proud of being a part of like as a hero, part of an initiative that's supporting open source projects this much.
Yes, and the one question, Emrah, from my side is that yesterday there's a lot of posting around DSQL, the serverless DB. And I heard about it, I read about it, but still, to be honest with you, I'm not getting into it. Like what I know, I'm actually posted yesterday, like, is 2025 a year of serverless DB? I know there's a lot of more serverless DBs actually in the market. I think Neon is also another serverless DB as well. Now there's AWS actually going towards that route, having serverless DB. What is actually a serverless DB means in terms of very new for the beginners? What actually serverless means and what the DB means on top of serverless?
So yeah, that's a very good story, and it's a long story and good question. So like it goes to like the what's serverless, like like in my definition, like the manage and the serverless means very different things. And AWS itself is making a huge mistake in every managed service that they're calling it serverless. Ironically enough, they announced Amazon DSQL as the distributed database, and you don't see a serverless nowhere around it. So they were calling the not serverless things serverless, like for example, managed Kafka or like Redshift serverless. They were calling it serverless, but like I wouldn't call them serverless, to be honest, as a serverless. Amazon DSQL is actually serverless, and AWS is not calling it serverless somewhere in the marketing things so far. Like, people are calling it, but so what goes as a serverless, in my opinion, it should scale to 0, and it should not cost anything when you are not using it. So and then it should be also be able to scale infinitely when you need it. So these are actually the 3 pillars from my point of view, like that makes something serverless. And for years there were Amazon DynamoDB, which is like the non-relational database that AWS is actually really heavily counting on, and they were kind of I'm not saying ignore. I don't want to say ignore, but like maybe like there were Aurora serverless v2 v1, but they were still requiring to keep a unit to be alive, so that like people can actually do it multi-cluster, multi-region. And we were all criticizing that, like, why there is not a DynamoDB counterpart in the relational database. And AWS finally, in this year, like, it is late is better than never, right? So they came up with this multi-environment, multi-region, and all distributed database. And like I can say that, like, I'm seeing the excitement of that I remember from when EventBridge first announced. So it's like an very exciting announcement that AWS actually come up with. So it is still in GA. There's no pricing around. So yeah, you mentioned Neon. There's also Zata. There's some other PostgreSQL companies. So I don't know, like maybe they will come up with like maybe multi-cloud game against AWS, but like this AWS announcement is actually kind of not playing well with Neon's plans, in my opinion. But I want to see how Neon or others will respond to this. But yeah, it is actually a move from AWS that is actually, they ignored this all this time, and then these companies popped up and they were doing great job, and now they are coming back with this.
Yes.
We will see how it goes. Like, the pricing is not clear about AWS Amazon DSQL. All we know is that it will be competitive. I don't know, like, what would like, it's a little bit like a vague statement, but they are telling that it will be competitive. We will see how it goes.
Yes, absolutely. I think the serverless in general, we see people are running databases in Kubernetes. I see some of the CNCF working group. We see there's some of the companies using databases in Kubernetes on top of Knative serverless technology. So that's a C. So the companies are still using it, and then we say, "Oh my, why use why you need actually serverless for the DB?" But I think it is a very good innovation. I think one of the really exciting news for me is basically around these serverless, and I see there's a lot of talking about this stuff as well. But Richard, do you have any opinions or any question around what you have noticed today, and we can ask our guests to react on these changes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot around Bedrock. So Imran, I don't know if you guys have kind of been looking at that at all. Is that something that sort of developers and themselves would be exploring?
I'm like one of those guys, like, who kind of missed the Gen 8 AI chain, I would say. So I'm not like really a day-to-day Gen 8 developer. I like to be very honest about it. Like, but like I'm following from a distance that, like, the Bedrock is now like becoming really strong, and also the AWS just replaced their foundation model called Titan with something called Nova. So
Yes.
it is something exciting. Like, when I speak with the friends who are actually interested in how would I say, the generative AI applications, they are really interested in seeing that, because like Noah is coming up with different types of models, like some like the video generation, image generation, and like just like a general purpose text, like in chatting, chatbots type of a model. So, and everyone is very optimistic about what it's going to bring, and I'm also looking forward to it.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
Werner Vogel's focused, the CTO, kind of focused a little bit on S3 this morning. What was the feeling around that? Because I thought that was kind of just going back on sort of, you know, S3's history and where it comes from and things like that. But I didn't it was kind of more of a sort of a explanation of where it's coming from and sort of looking at the history of it. But I didn't see kind of anything new there being announced.
As you may know, like already, so the world runs on S3, right? So everyone, you're like, if S3 goes down today, like I think we will be losing like maybe more than half of the applications on the internet. So, and everyone using S3 with different approaches, different aims, and so on. And there are quite a big amount of people who are using S3 almost like a database. So they are using Parquet format to make S3 sound like database and use like database. And there were of course like some performance issues with this. So with this like the AWS S3 tables, like they are just like directly calling it tables. So for those who wants to use this as a database. And they are using the Apache Iceberg to make the datasets like the more structured. So I'm just also looking at the things that the benchmark showed that query performance improves up to 3.2x. So it's much more faster to make a read request S3 using Apache Iceberg, using Iceberg, using S3 tables,
right?
And they are compacting tables so that like the read request is like the 8.5 smaller amount of data compared to uncompacted tables. So it is like the if you are using S3 with big data amounts, like my own company, for example, like the new company ℂ𝕤𝕤. So yeah, we are using S3 aggressively enough to store files and then retrieve them when needed. And we were kind of having these problems, and this will automatically make our customers 3.2x faster. So this is like this is how like I see that it will be helpful for companies dealing with a big chunk of data. I'm looking forward to really get my hands dirty with it and like see how it actually performs.
Absolutely. Now the next question is around your new company as well, because I wanted to know, because I haven't know around until today when you actually tell me, because I'm thinking now you must be spending time with the Get Amped actually, basically. How is your previous experience of Amped is different or actually similar in the newer company in ℂ𝕤𝕤?
Yeah, so startups are hard. So we have been working with Amped, and we were getting lots of tractions from the community, lots of customers, and but like we were looking to fundraise for some time, and then it kind of became this economy and this start. It's not like if you are not a Gen AI startup these days, it's not easy to fundraise. So we kind of wanted to say like let's not kill Amped, but like let's go find full-time jobs and just like look around like how we can pursue Amped. And it's like I need to just like say a big thank you to Jeremy, my co-founder. He is actually pushing it a lot more than me. I need to pay big respect to him here. So he's actually also working full-time at ℂ𝕤𝕤 now, but we are still helping our customers at Amped, and we are still accepting new signups. So like Amped, as I say, is staying around, sticking around, but we will not be heavily investing time on that for now. And I found a very nice new home that I'm really, very happy with. So ℂ𝕤𝕤 is a company that I've been following for years now, and I think they are solving a problem that not many of us are aware, because like that's kind of a very enterprise problem. So there are companies who are just like producing ton of logs, like every day they are just like producing terabytes of logs, and then they are sending these logs to a platform like Datadog or like to Splunk, so that actually they can query them when needed. But like most of the time, like for most of the logs, they are just like going there, they are causing them ingestion cost, but it's not actually used. So it's not, because it's not very important. So ℂ𝕤𝕤 is what ℂ𝕤𝕤 does is like using an intelligent pattern recognition. It's detecting the patterns in the logs, and then this like recommends customers that hey, this like they are building an intelligent telemetry pipeline to route some logs to some cold storage, like to S3, but like some important logs to the observability platform, and maybe some to ℒ𝕝𝕚, like enrich data. Like, hey, if it's coming from this server, just add this attributes to it. Transform data, get metrics out of logs, get metrics out of traces, parse security data. So like these were the problems that I was not very familiar of, to be honest. But like when I joined ℂ𝕗𝕐, I saw that like the companies like the airlines, and if for example, Box.com is one of our customers at ℂ𝕗𝕐. So they're just like, think about the data that the logs that it's producing. So you cannot just ship it to Splunk and that it will cost you millions of dollars per year. So ℂ𝕗𝕐 is saving them, helping them to save cost with that. So and ℂ𝕗𝕐 also has its own observability platform. So if you don't want to send it to Datadog or like Splunk, you can also send it to ℂ𝕗𝕐's observability platform. That's actually what I built in the last 6 months at ℂ𝕗𝕐. So I'm very into tracing from my previous jobs, and that's why like I was like, okay, let's build the tracing for ℂ𝕗𝕐, and we are doing eBPF tracing and also OpenTelemetry tracing at ℂ𝕗𝕐. So yeah, that's how we are helping our customers at ℂ𝕗𝕐. So I'm very proud, and we are hiring. So if people are listening us, so you can just reach out to me directly or apply to our jobs. Yeah.
Awesome, absolutely. And one thing I really noticed that you have a playground. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
You can actually,
Yeah.
so I'm actually expecting you actually just sign up an email and you hit a let's go button, and then you have a pre-configured environment stood up, and then you experiment with what your platform is actually enabling their customers, and they can actually see them at a glance.
Exactly. So it's play.ℂ𝕗𝕐.com. So if you want to check it, like how we are actually transforming data, reducing data, and if you want to check our observability platform, it's like an observability suite at the moment, and you can just like visit play.ℂ𝕗𝕗.com and just start playing with it right now. And then if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Again, reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm very responsive to my messages. So yeah.
Awesome, that's great because I love these sandbox environment, because where you can actually play with some of the things up front and then try to actually memorize or predict like what is actually the experience going to look like. Because in previous time, you don't have to actually, you have to install, and there's so much stuff in there. Observability is always you need data to play with. So not everyone has that data to understand what you actually providing at the end. So having these playground would be very nice one. So Richard, before we let off our guest,
I lost you there, Saim. I can't hear you.
You are on mute somehow.
Still can't hear you, I'm afraid. Use sign language or something. Smoke signals. right.
I think I'm back.
Yeah, you are back.
You're back.
I'm saying like before we let off our guest, if you have any final questions you want to ask to our guest.
Yeah. Embro, what was kind of your first of all, kind of your overall just kind of view of reInvent this year? Just kind of a quick summary, and also what's been maybe one of your favorite announcements that's come out of it?
It's the SQL by far. So like the SQL is the most exciting thing in years. And like I just like tested it somehow, like with a small application. It's just like it's working very smoothly, and it's like the experiences from other heroes. Like let me just actually post some video, some links from other heroes' experience. I didn't write a blog post, but some heroes wrote. So maybe you can share this. I'm looking forward. Like sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
Just like there were a blog post about it. So yeah, I found it's like my hero ℂ𝕝𝕚 wrote this blog about DSQL and the other things in reInvent. So I recommend everyone checking. And like there is a call. There is like Mark Brooker, the distinguished engineer who was actually behind DSQL, is making a deep dive in AWS Veeam, and it will be like the available very soon on YouTube. I recommend everyone checking it. It's by far the most exciting about AWS, except for the all the Gen AI things that's happening. So you can understand me how how I'm a little bit away from a Gen AI train. But yeah, this is my by far this, and there's not much very out groundbreaking announcements last year's. But like this one was like the very long due, and I'm very happy that it's out.
Absolutely. And I think like we should, Richard and me, as he reserve some spot for Amra to have a full flash podcast with him. And also, we definitely find someone from the team of the AWS to talk about DSQL, because this is quite a very unique use cases can be emerged in the near future. So we are
Yeah,
hoping to find someone to speak about with us. And
yeah,
hope Amra, I will be in chat with you. Yes, you share the name with us. That's great. I will
yeah.
definitely be chasing him for the podcast as well. So before I let you go, just a final question. How
Mhm.
was the food at the conference? And how many Turkish people did you find in the AWS reInvent?
Oh, so yeah, we are like quite a company here. So we are already like six AWS heroes from Turkey, and then and like lots of attendees, like, and lots of entrepreneurs. There's quite a the Turkish community here, and like our our bar is a little bit high about food, so I cannot compare the Turkish food with the food here. So because but the food is still super cool, and there are like lots of options for vegan, lots of options for anything that you would like to consume for. So yeah, it's quite nice. And what I'm saying that like it's uh, this time of the year. This is my sixth time here at Reinvent. Is like me tasting different kitchens, and then I really enjoy my time here, like as a foodie.
Oh, great, great. We asked the same question to our field reporter, who is also Turkish, Amin
Uh-huh.
Alımdağ. And
Yeah,
he said yesterday that I am actually in search for the Turkish food. But unfortunately, he's been great. He's actually been doing some field reporting for us for the last 2 days as well.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
searching for Turkish food abroad is a big mistake. So like, don't even try it.
absolutely. But Amra, we really love talking with you. And this me and Richard will be in touch with you. That's
Yeah,
quite for
yeah.
sure. And we are hosting some more podcasts with you as well. And Richard, I think might be the 2025 our first guest of the for the podcast is Amra.
Yeah, yeah. I also enjoyed my chat with you guys, and like looking forward to chatting with you more. Like it was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for wonderful insights. Looking forward to meeting you again.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Oh, good. Richard, did you enjoy the chat with our guest?
Yeah, I thought that was really good. I mean, it's always nice to get a perspective on some of these kind of relatively smaller companies, but they're kind of doing some
Yes.
exciting stuff because one person or two people have kind of come up with some ideas and they're kind of putting that together and coming up with a new solution. So it's always good to explore that and kind of learn about it. It's almost kind of I don't know if I should have asked it. Was Emma at KubeCon? Do you know if he was there?
No,
Did he
no, I
get
believe he's not there.
Okay, right. Yeah, I mean, the lightning talks and things like that would be probably ideal for the
Yes.
type of thing that he's doing. You could
Yes.
probably apply for the next one, and I don't know, come to London maybe. So um,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, that'd be good. But that's kind of I like that sort of that space is really cool because that's where a lot of the stuff that's now mainstream, started off
Mm.
like that as a sort of a project, and then it snowballs and gets bigger and bigger, and then eventually maybe gets donated to the CNCF or something like that.
Absolutely. I think like one thing I really definitely I need to add my screen. I can share my screen, and I
Hmm.
think really good thing is that what they build a website is very good playgrounds. Richard, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can now. Yeah.
This is their website, basically ℂ𝕤𝕤.com, and basically what you can do is you can select an environment to create. So let's
Hmm.
say if I want to create a Kubernetes cluster,
Yeah.
and this is basically a sandbox environment they're giving me, so I can play with observability and what their platform is doing. So quite
Okay.
an interesting space to watch out for as well. So I think these guys will be reserved for give us a quick guide as what they actually are trying to do with their solution called Edge Delta.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really, like I said, interesting, because I think we were talking yesterday about, well, we were talking about profiling yesterday. So I was asking
Mm.
the Honeycomb guys about
Yes.
profiling. So that was really interesting. That there was a lot of interest around, that. I think uh, I picked up when you and I were talking previously. I picked that up really around KubeCon. There was a lot of focus around that in KubeCon. So doing profiling and things like that, was a big thing or it seemed to be an up and coming thing in KubeCon. The other thing was WebAssembly. Now, again, unless I've missed it, I disappointingly didn't see anything from AWS around WebAssembly. So I don't know if they're kind of doing anything in
Mm.
WebAssembly. It'd be really good to see the hyperscalers, these public cloud providers, the big three, kind of supporting it a little bit more and offering some solutions around it, some platforms maybe around it.
Mm.
It cannot be just driven by the open source community and the CNCF. It needs to kind of get a little bit more momentum as well from the hyperscalers. So
Yes.
I've not seen any announcements. I was looking at the page around that, and I couldn't find anything around WASM or WebAssembly at all on there.
Yes,
So I
I
said,
think you call out a very good topic. I'll thank you very much because my favorite topic these days is literally VASM. Because if they actually asking me, oh, uh, I'm hoping they because they're asking me, there should be a unified solution.
hmm,
There should be a unified solution or a unified library that you can use wherever you put stuff without need to worry about what the container image dependencies you got. It's just a
mhm.
universal binary. And
Right,
definitely I'm thinking around what could be the future in 2025 for the cloud having some those capabilities and you deploying stuff in there as well.
yeah.
I think we definitely need to see. I need to catch people after the reinvent. What is there anything happen on the VASM? We definitely want to catch up.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I was looking at the sort of line by line announcements, and they've actually made, as far as I can see, and let me just refresh the page. Uh, but as far as I can see, they've made no further announcements today. All the announcements are from yesterday. Um, so I've not seen anything newer appearing on the page today, unless the page has not been updated. But obviously all the stuff around Bedrock, SageMaker, um, lots of stuff around AI and Amazon Q, um, and just general generative AI stuff. I think have been the focus. I've seen nothing around. Um,
Yes, no, I think
I should do maybe a search. Let me see if I can just do a quick
might be. I
search.
think might be there's not a lot of coverage on the
Yeah.
marketing side of the
So
VASM.
yeah, zero results found on WebAssembly. Let me just try
There,
to do WASM and see if that's any better. Let me
I
clear the
think
page.
like I think one thing is one thing we see that the VASM cloud in itself is developing. So VASM cloud is basically a technology, whether you are in cloud, edge devices, or anywhere, VASM cloud can give you the functionality to
Mm.
host your WebAssembly interface and WebAssembly application into these different operating environments.
Yeah.
So that could be this. What I see is like right now there's two projects, and remember in the KubeCon we actually meet some of the guys from the
Yes.
WebAssembly folks, and if people are watching, interesting to see, they definitely watch, I think, the day two of KubeCon live stream, because
Yes.
where we find folks from the Matt Butcher from the Fermion booth, and he has two solution right now. So Spin is a framework particularly that actually wrap your application inside a box, and
Yeah.
then the Spin Cube is actually a new open source tool that help you deploy WebAssembly workload in Kubernetes. So you
Mm.
can use Kubernetes to deploy WASM workload as well. And WASM cloud is another third layer that
Yeah.
basically sits on top of everyone and then makes sure your edge devices on on some of the cloud or anywhere you want to deploy, you can deploy these workload as well. But I think this should be in our radar. We need to chase people what's
Yeah.
actually happening in this landscape. But one thing is, Amra, during the conversation, speak about it. I see a lot of the startup is failing. And Richard, I need your therapy on this one. Let's do some therapy
Yes.
on
Let's
this
do
one.
that. Yeah.
There's
Yeah. We need.
one, I think there's a lot, because I see there's a lot of startup is failing around where they can ask, oh, this you can write an application, and
Yes.
then we will figure out what the environment for you. You
Right.
don't need to worry about the database or anything on that front. Just give us an application with all the configuration it has,
Mm.
and we will deploy it for you. And these startups are failing on a
Mm.
big time. So
Yeah.
it's time for a therapy.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not I'm not seeing like a huge amount around that. I think the main stuff that we really picked up was KubeCon. So things
Hmm.
like WASM Cloud and and some of the other sort of tools seem to be the very few tools that are really kind of at the heart of what's going on with WASM or WebAssembly. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I see it as the next unit of computing. So if
Hmm.
we are going to kind of head towards that, there needs to be a bigger ecosystem. There needs to be more investment. And let's face it, the hyperscalers have very deep pockets. So
Yes.
I'd love to see them supporting these types of projects. I think they've been competing with each other for a long time, and now they've got a new uh, environment or market sector to compete in, which is the generative AI sort of sector.
Hmm.
I'd like to see them, like I said, they have deep pockets. They have a lot of uh, capital, and they should be able to um, invest some of that into some of these projects and maybe champion things like WASM, because I think for them it's also you know extremely useful. You can imagine in a hyperscale data center how much
Hmm.
space you can save by compacting down the unit of computing that you
Yes.
have. So it's no longer just virtual machines. It's no longer just containers, but now the next unit of computing, the smallest unit of computing, with WebAssembly, is the next sort of iteration of that. So yes, I'd like to see them kind of focus a lot more on that. Put some money behind it, and support WebAssembly in general.
Yes, absolutely. 110%, I believe, is going to be. I think 2025 might be the year where people starting to realize that WebAssembly is not just an experimental thing. We can actually try in the different environment as well. I think once again, these technologies, people know what the value they can bring to them. The problem is that what I'm seeing is there's not a skill oriented people around these technologies like eBPF or WASM. That's where the I think the that's where I think the natural skepticism is around. It's not that they are not giving anything great to the table. It's
Mm.
who where to find these people. There's only people in the internet who's building these technologies. They understand WASM and eBPF, let's say for an example. But outside, there's not many people in your backyard. You can offload and ask them to develop these things inside your company using these technologies. And then people say, oh, we do not want to use that route. But
Yeah, I think it's maybe on 2 or 3 levels. So first level is that people just don't know what it is and they don't
hmm,
understand it. Even people in the open source space, you can be an open source, you can be a developer, you can be a contributor to a project, but that doesn't mean you know about all the other projects, and unless you happen to be very enthusiastic about the whole thing and you kind of follow the CNCF landscape or something. So I think that's one layer. The next layer I think is that the people who are doing things in it, like some of these Fermion, maybe others, maybe they're not, either they don't see it as the next unit of computing, or if they do, they're not able to articulate that. And this goes back to the
hmm,
conversation we had with Colin yesterday, where we
yes.
were thinking about um, the coming up with all these technology things. That's great, but then you're not able to articulate that into business language, so that the CIOs and the CTOs and the you know the business side of the of an enterprise can actually see the value. They're not able to see the value. They're not able to see the ROI on these things. So articulation, focus on you know um, projecting it as the next unit of computer. I mean, I'm the one who's making those educated guesses, just because that's what I see. If you
Yes.
if your runtime is smaller, it doesn't need to be, your code doesn't need to be encapsulated necessarily in anything. Um, it can be, I guess, orchestrated by Kubernetes, at least for now. But in the future, it will be something like WASM Cloud as the orchestrator, not Kubernetes as the orchestrator. That for me
Hmm.
spells, a lot of the components of a unit of computing, right? Because the runtime is the thing that kind of makes your application or your code run, right? So we've had, Docker with the container runtime. We've had, virtual machines with the operating system as the runtime essentially, and all the .NETs and whatever the Java, whatever within that. Those are all the runtimes. And then previous to virtual machines, we had physical machines. So those have all been units of computing, and now we're down to, WASM.
Hmm.
But I don't think it's being described as that, and I think it maybe needs that sort of boost. Really, it needs that sort of
Yes.
description. And
I
then the
think
third thing, sorry, the third layer is, I think that there just isn't enough enthusiasm. There's, like I said, I'm making a statement here to the hyperscalers so that they pick up on some of these things, and and support the community, support the companies. That's a good way, because, like I said, they'll be investing in their future as well. And it's not fair that you have, you're making a ton of money, from the services that you offer, your cloud services, and I'd like to see some of that money reinvested. Sure, I mean, we talked yesterday, AWS done a great job on education and the underserved sort of communities and countries, and students around the world, and free training on AI, and things like that. That's all very cool, but there is also this other element which develops not products and solutions, but develops the next paradigm shift, the next generation of code that everybody will be using.
Yes,
Yeah, so it's a bit like
absolutely.
let's say Kubernetes was started by one of these small startups, and nobody gave a damn, nobody cared. Yeah, it
Yes,
wouldn't be today. 10 years later, it wouldn't be today what it was. And so that's why we need the Googles, we need the Microsofts, we need the Amazons of the world to kind of say, okay, let's create a unit that will always be there at KubeCon, that will always that will have they'll have an input into CNCF projects, will contribute to that. And I'm sure individuals are doing it, but I'd like to see it on this stage. I'd like to see it in reInvent. I'd like to see Werner Vogel say, and this year we invested $100 million on CNCF projects. We're in this, and we're in this, and we're in this, and one of those happens to be I don't know, ℂ𝕝𝕠𝕦𝕕 Cloud or whatever,
yes.
right? And that's the kind of thing I'd like to see happening. And then that's
I
where
think that,
the likes of AWS are investing in their own future.
yes, absolutely. I think the one thing I'm seeing is that is the initially when every time the new technology comes up, there's a marketing angle is quite of a really flawed. Like if you look at it, every time there's a new thing come up, there's a versus is actually a big thing. This versus that, this versus that, container versus VM, serverless versus containers, and container versus WASM. And then there's something similar philosophy for DevOps versus platform engineering. So the versus actually changes, hurting everyone big time. So when the WASM initially comes up, there's a marketing like, oh, container versus VM.
Yeah.
And then they try to understand, oh, now we are competing with the containers, and let's try to build another ecosystem around WASM. That's a very silly approach because Kubernetes created a huge, gigantic ecosystem that nobody tried to compete with today, as of today. I don't know what's happened after 3 months from now. So nobody's trying to compete with. So I think now WASM is doing a good job. Instead of competing with this parallel ecosystem, or creating a new ecosystem, they're asking, no worries, we can use Kubernetes and deploy new unit of computing that's called WASM beside container in it as well. So that's where we're seeing more and more solution popping up.
Yeah, because they're using resource definitions like custom CRDs and CRUDs and whatever to create that that module in Kubernetes to allow them to run WASM runtime and WASM code within Kubernetes, and then for Kubernetes to be able to orchestrate WASM workloads, and that's fine. But I think for me that's like a retrofit. You're just having to make use of what's already available because there is nothing else to use. Yeah, and like I said, there is nothing else to use because there isn't enough investment in it to do the research to produce something new. But if there was investment, then WASM Cloud would be maybe the default. It will be the equivalent of Kubernetes in the WebAssembly world, not the container world, but the WebAssembly world. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's my kind of view, really. That's how I see it. And there needs to be more focus, more investment. I think from these big hyperscalers in some of these new and up and coming potential paradigm shifts like WebAssembly. So I think, like I said, those three layers. I think it's both from that community. They're just not able to articulate enough, or they don't have the marketing resources and so on, or it's as well as maybe being a combination of the hyperscalers not really wanting to, or for whatever reason right now, maybe just lack of knowledge, not having invested in those things. But like I said, those things just like Kubernetes, Kubernetes took off, and then all of the hyperscalers adopted it. So then we had,
Yes.
AKS, EKS, GKE, etc. So clearly that's, it's the same thing with WebAssembly, I think, and they will eventually, once it gains momentum, they'll adopt it. But really, what they should be doing is they should be, just like they're trying to do in AI and Gen AI, they should be really pioneering as well and leading, the investment in WebAssembly.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I think these are the topic I love conversating with as well, because I think this is really, I see a push is actually forward to. If companies are built around it, then I don't see anybody can stop them, because I see when the Kubernetes comes up, there's a new ecosystem evolving around. Oh, now we have policy enforcement. We have some sort of Kubernetes add-on. We need a languages runtime for the Kubernetes infrastructure. And there's so much in Kubernetes, and they keep on pushing the boundaries way further. I think what end up happening right now, we are actually in a speedy car, and we're riding. Its car is actually is not stationary, but it's moving. And when we need to actually change that car in a moving car, it's kind of a dangerous. So what ended up happening is you need another car beside, and that actually chase you. When it's
Yeah,
eventually stop, you need to swap out and swap in. So in a
yeah,
moving car, nobody want to change the location or anything. But I think everybody wants to actually move away, and thinking around, when they stop, pause up for a little minute, and then we actually swap into the another
yes,
car.
yes.
But sorry, Richard, we need to actually change a topic, and I want you, because might be possibilities are this is our last stream of the year. That is
Oh,
could be a huge possibility.
yeah.
Now, tell us, our
We've run out
audience.
of conferences to live stream.
Yes, absolutely. That is quite the true. Now, I have there. I think I will be publishing 2 3 more podcasts in my YouTube channel as well for the
Mm,
near future. I have
yeah.
already recorded one. I need approval for one of the guests as well, and
Okay.
this is quite interesting because Richard, thanks for your help on this one, because this is quite a very new topic to me as well. So I recorded a podcast on quantum computing. Oh my God!
Ah.
So I'm hoping to actually push it in the near future. And also I recorded one other podcast on the CubeScape project from
Mm,
Armosec company. But do
okay.
let us know what is the future of these YouTube channels, because this is 2024 and we're ending this year in, I think, 25 days from now. Yes, 25
Yeah.
days from now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in one sentence, hopefully it's more success for both of us.
Yes.
That's for sure. But I mean, beyond that, yeah. I mean, I've also recorded a talk with somebody from the US around WebAssembly. So we kind of did a sort of a WebAssembly introduction, uh, talk as well, which was quite good. The name of the company, let me see if I can bring it up, is ℂ𝕝𝕒𝕚𝕒𝕚, which is
Yes.
quite interesting. So yeah, that was really, like I said, a sort of an intro to WebAssembly. And ℂ𝕝𝕚𝕚𝕚 kind of offer really a sort of a packaged platform approach to things like that. So that's coming out on the channel. I've got a ton of stuff that I need to release, and I want to release, this side of Christmas, so to speak. So I'll be quite busy with doing that, and I've got more releases coming out for the year. I'm also doing for this year. Normally, the December episode of Cloud State of Play, which is my monthly discussion segment. We normally use that to look back on the year. So we do kind of a review of the year, pick on some of the highlights of news and acquisitions, major failures. I think CrowdStrike will definitely be in that, and various things. So we do like a review, but for this year we've decided to make the December episode the normal episode, and then we're going to have a Christmas special episode of Cloud State to Play, and we'll actually be calling in one other person to be joining us as well. So it's kind of going to be a little bit more of a wider audience, a wider number of guests. I think if one other person can join, will be great, but we'll see if I can get them to join. So that Christmas special is going to be a little bit more around the review of the year, looking back at the year, what's happened, and so on. So that's coming up. AI State to Play, like I said, I kind of launched that recently. So I've done the first episode of AI State to Play, which is the same really format as Cloud State to Play, but it's focusing purely on AI topics. So that'll be not monthly, that'll be quarterly. So the first episode, which kind of really focused on early on news from early on this year, that's already out. So I actually did that with ℂ𝕗𝕤𝕒𝕒𝕚, who is at reInvent, but unfortunately he is such a busy boy, we've not been able to actually get him on the live stream, which was very unfortunate. But I do know all the AWS guys are very busy. I mean, John Hammond joined us yesterday, and again, apart from the technical and signal problems that he was experiencing, I think he's very, very busy as well. So I think they're all being kept quite busy at the moment. So so hopefully I will do some reInvent reviews. So I did one actually with John for last year, so John Hammond. So I suspect we'll do one for this year. We'll do a top 5 tech trends for 25 as well. We'll do that. But I've got a whole bunch of other stuff that for some of the conferences that I've attended as well. I've got footage from those. I have interviews, both some of the ones in the UK and also the Open Source Summit in Vienna, which I attended, and we did a review, obviously, of that.
Yes.
SRE Day, we did a review of that, a short review. So all of that, the footage from those interviews that I did, all of that I'm trying to really get done as soon as I can, and hopefully get those out before Christmas.
Absolutely. And I think if people are not subscribing to our YouTube channel, then it's going to be a lot of worry for a lot of the viewers as well, because we are putting a lot of energy into this YouTube channel as well. And I think I think the good story around this YouTube channel is that we managed to pull up some very good guests from the industry who have plethora of experience, and they're not just the consumer of the technology, but are the builder of the technologies as well. So a lot of the expert we actually put forward to this YouTube channel is builder who actually building stuff. The one guy who actually joined us today, his name is Amra. He's actually building something in his company. So I think if you're watching what's happening, and I think if you want to predict what your future could gonna look like, these are the YouTube channel you should subscribe to, because I think we're putting a lot of the energy. Inviting these people is not easy. We know how much of the energy and emailing we put forward to bring those people to our YouTube channels. So I think it's a lot of hustle. For me, 2024 is a busiest year once again.
Yeah.
And I think for Richard is actually the same story.
It definitely has been, and I'm a one-man band. I'm just myself, and just the channel. It's really my sort of my own channel. It's not sponsored or supported. My employer doesn't have any input on it at all, and that's the way I like it. But a couple of points, just picked up on what you said, Saim. I do agree with you in terms of the direction that we both take our channels in. And I think in a conversation you and I had months ago, we said that we're kind of really almost the sort of the journalists of in this particular, so specifically in this kind of cloud and open source and cloud native space. I think we're kind of very much focused on that. And the other thing is I'm not really, I mean, if people want to kind of see how to, I don't know, build a, CRD or something like that in Kubernetes, or how to install a Kubernetes cluster or whatever, or how to get, WebAssembly working. I think there's plenty of channels that will actually show you, all of that kind
Awesome.
of stuff.
Sorry to interrupt you, Richard. I
Yeah.
think we are wrapping up, and for wrapping the live stream, if we don't have Colin, is not a good
Oh,
job.
Colin, too late.
Col-
Bye. We're just gonna sign off.
Oh
I
my
know,
God.
yeah, get out of here right when I show
Yeah.
up. I got a nice haircut for you guys all
Oh, no,
today as
no.
well.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
look
God.
wonderful, wonderful. Thank. We're just wrapping up. Unfortunately, our field reporter is actually is caught up by fever. He couldn't join us, but actually we joined by AWS serverless hero, and he shared some wonderful insight. He said his company's ℂ𝕤𝕤, they're working on the observability space, so we have a lot of conversation going on. Now we're wrapping up, and we definitely won't be wrapping without you. So thank you very much for joining us. Now I think this is might be the last stream of our 2024. And I think one good thing we actually get from this year is that, because it's talking about, it's very tough for us to scheduling all these kind of activities, putting everything and adding, and also asking speaker to join us. Is there sometimes 20 to 30 email threads we actually circulating on every day? Oh, please, can you join us on this time or that time?
Let me give
But
you an anecdotal story.
yes,
Did
absolutely.
Earlier this year, I did a talk where I wanted to kind of do some stuff around AI. So there was a really good opportunity to do that, and I called it AI Pragma. The actual talk. The two people that I had on there were in different time zones, so I had to get them to kind of all, I had to agree timing and schedule and and diaries, and it was, I mean, that was just two people, and then I had one which was, which had three people on it, and that was even worse. And they were all in the UK, I think, or mostly in the UK, at least in Europe. So that was easier from the time zone perspective, but just scheduling people in and getting them all to agree on the same slot is a
Yes,
complete nightmare. I have
absolutely.
found an open source website actually that is really helpful for that. People don't have to register, they don't have to give their email address, they can just put their first name, and then they can checkbox all the dates that they can make and the times they can make, and then I can go and the website informs me, and then I can know which bits, which days they can make, and then I can make a selection and send them the
Yes,
invitation.
absolutely. Definitely, we're definitely looking forward to using
Absolutely,
it. Yeah, absolutely. But I think, Cole, number one thing I think for our viewers, we find our field reporter for this year. This is the first time actually we did actually live stream the KubeCon. So, Colin, please give us your highlight overview of that, because it's not easy to. I know there's not anybody's actually. Oh, I do not want to talk to that. There's a market approval for that thing. Oh, we don't want to call out in the camera. So tell us your experience and also the KubeCon in general.
Yeah, the live stream thing was a lot of fun. I remember when we were first chatting about getting on there for an interview, I knew to Richard's point with the time slots, I was going to be between two different interviews. So I needed to be from one side of KubeCon to the other side of KubeCon while I talked to you guys anyway. And so we had thought, hey, maybe it's fine. I'll just talk as I walk and see what happens. But then we just kept talking, and and I didn't need to do the other. So I never really thought that I would enjoy doing that. I just never really thought about it, but now I want to do a lot more of it, which is
Yes,
fun.
and
So,
Colin,
but yeah.
and just to your knowledge, I remember for the day two, you actually walked for 70 minutes. Did you know that?
Yeah, and people might not know as well. So I had my phone, and so we've got another camera now. But so I had my phone, and I would hold my phone out like this, right, and say, "Hey, can you talk to Sam and Richard and listen to them?" I had to cup my hand so that people could actually hear it. So I ended up walking around, holding up the camera just arms out for that entire time so that you can try to
Yes.
frame and get. I think I have new muscles that I've never had before.
There
That
you
was
go.
sore for like
Certainly
a
built
week.
up some new ones, Colin, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was terrible. But it was worth it. It was worth it. So I got a little exercise. You put the nerd through his paces.
But I'm
Yeah.
telling the audience today, you actually did a live walk for the 70-minute on day 2, and I think around 60 or 55-minute in day 2. So you have been continuously walking on the floor in the KubeCon for the 2 hour. I think this is absolutely appreciable. I don't
Yeah.
have words for it. I know it's not easy in the conference, and I think we have find your other skills is that you are actually very good at locating the booth. You go there, you check there, and you go jump in there with just a few,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to actually walk. You have
We
we discover very hidden skills from you.
and we needed you today, Colin. Our field reporter was not well today, so
Yes.
We'll figure that out. We'll get to more next year.
I feel like
I'm sure,
jumped on
yeah.
a plane and just flew over to Vegas.
We got it. We got it. I mean, it's
Yes.
great. It gives all three of us a great chance to learn. It
Mm.
means that we can divide and conquer too, so that we don't have to all be at all the conferences. But the learning is the big thing. But we were talking yesterday, and the thing I'm most excited about, I think, is like we want to get out there and highlight the people that you wouldn't normally talk to, and the
Yes.
folks who are in the trenches building the tech. Let's give them a chance to talk and give them a voice, and give them some exposure. So I'm really excited about that. But definitely next year we've got to go at this really strong so that people can get to more conferences and not have to leave leave their homes or leave their offices or travel. Like we'll sacrifice. We'll travel.
Yes.
Really
Absolutely.
excited about that.
100%. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up, but I think we definitely give our audience number one thing. As our field spoker is very excited about, my co-host is excited about, we definitely be at least covering next year 3 events: KubeCon London, KubeCon Atlanta, and AWS reInvent. That is our full focus. And hopefully we do be covering Open UK. That's my big wishes are. Might be
Yeah.
KCD UK as well, and few of the conference where Colin is actually moving to as well. And also the big aim for me in the next year is that, as the Colin is talking about, we know there's a lot of conference, a lot of opportunities to people to speak about it. But Colin is absolutely right. There's not enough opportunities for the new people, the newcomers to actually
Right.
come and talk about it. Newer company, like newer startup, we just find Amra's company is doing wonderful work in the observability space. So now, Mai and Richard, we definitely think about it. How do we actually hold a conference virtually to give these people a chance? Give Colin to talk about, I see Chromeware as well. I know you're doing wonderful work in the community, in the some of the, you have some wonderful customers in the backyard as well. So Richard, now we have so much stuff to do. So is your up to your final call to wrap up?
Yeah, it's been great to cover. Yeah, we had some obviously technical hitches at the beginning. I think the Vegas needs to really sort out this Wi-Fi. That's all I can say. I think on that they need to talk to KubeCon guys and see how they do their Wi-Fi, because their Wi-Fi was fantastic.
Yes.
They need to talk to the geeky guys and get it sorted out. So definitely that. Yeah, I think, I mean, overall, just sticking to reInvent is, I think I said on day one, it's kind of a, that Intel TikTok sort of thing that they do. So kind of, Bedrock had this sort of TikTok sort of thing for this. I can't remember which one it is from Intel. I think Tick is the update and Tok is the new new announcements. So definitely, I think Bedrock had that. SageMaker and all the others all got sort of updates. There's lots of other stuff around Amazon Q. So I think AWS was kind of bringing it on the next sort of iteration of all those things that they announced a year ago, and they've been great. But obviously they needed that sort of extra boost and new enhancements and new features kind of bringing in as well. Again, people were already talking about the hardware side, so Trainium and all the other sort of announcements around that. That was quite interesting, and I think that's kind of again become a sort of a currency thing where every year just you get that sort of new update from AWS. And again, around the Nova models, so that's the new announcement of putting those into Bedrock. Unfortunately, they're just in Bedrock. I'd like to see some of those open source. That'll be really cool as well. So unfortunately, right now they're just in Bedrock, only available in Bedrock. And then I think the rest of it kind of S3 and everything, all the stalwarts. I think somebody in the presentation, the keynote today, said S3 has been up for 18 years now, or something like that, which is absolutely fantastic.
Holy crap.
So eat your heart out, mainframe guys. That's all I can say. But yeah, so that kind of really got again sort of a sort of a currency update on that. Nothing I think too major. Yeah, and lots of other stuff to check out. So I'm just going to drop a link of all the kind of a ticker tape sort of all the updates in the chat as well, so people can have a look at that. We won't be able to do all the announcements and updates justice, but it's nice for folks to be able to pick up on these things and then be able
Absolutely.
to go and
I think
and check out the details for themselves.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to be a busy year for all of us. I think, Colin, for you as well, going most of the conference this year. I think December need a recharging. I think this will be a recharging for all of us for this year. But I really enjoyed a lot. And as to our Colin's and Richard point, I think the next year, because one of the as a group, we're really looking forward to making sure the newer people has visibility in the community. I know there's a lot of concern in the community, like there's not room opportunity, but Colin will be there, Richard will be there in some of the conference. So I hope this actually grow up. So Colin, you are very good in concluding the conversation, and very good. And I know from the platform working group as well. So now it's your time, and then I will actually wrap up our, I think 6 hour of reInvent.
I think if I had to sum up the year or look forward into next year, this year was really strong with regards to, we got a lot of new tools, a lot of new vendors, a lot of new things that developed, and we're all trying to play catch up. I really think that 2025 is all about the end user. Talking about showing what people are building, what they're using to build, what people are creating, and not just something they're going to go out and sell to the cloud native space or in the technologist space, but what are the real world problems that we're building applications and things for, and leveraging these tools to solve. I really want to take a deep dive into that next year and give that a lot of time and focus, and give those people a platform. So really excited to focus on the developers and the builders and folks next year, and make 2025 about them. So ready to rock and roll.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Colin. And I think number one to-do list on my to-do list is, what do we name this trio, the 3 people group? What do we name this trio? I think that could be a very, so I'm looking forward to what people comments and suggest. What should be the trio name for the 2025? That's important.
Where should we go?
Yes, absolutely.
Within reason.
Yes, which region? Absolutely. So first thing first, I think in 2025, we'll be in closing. What do you collectively call us if you spot one of us in any conference? That is our main thing for the agenda. But thank you very much. It's been a superb year for me. I think wrapping up the KubeCon and also in the reInvent, there's a lot of learning for me and also all of us for what actually been companies is developing and solving solution from the KubeCon and also in the reInvent. I will look forward to meeting you again and look forward to hosting more sessions as well. Have a wonderful day and wishing you the best of the 2025, everyone. Bye-bye.